If I had to pay for this professional,
Did you find them?
If she moves the chair, she's gonna
Huh?
be out of the camera.
No, I didn't find them.
I don't know where they are.
Oh, look again.
You didn't take them over to your mother's, did you?
Oh, I hope it comes out clear that on the tape, will it?
Well, this eyepiece isn't the. You don't
Isn't
check
the way it
pixels.
looks?
I hadn't been over there since.
It's got coarse grain.
Is it gonna? It's gonna.
Pixels in it. It's focused. Trust me.
He's using a camera like I've never seen before, so I don't. He says I have to trust him. Okay, we're ready.
Yeah. Go
And
ahead.
what?
Today is November the 20th.
20th.
20th of November, 1999. This is Clara Griffin, my grandmother.
And this is Sharon Griffin, the youngest of the Griffin clan. And Clara's here today to tell us some things about her life, about her family, and so that we'll have a record of our family, and so we'll know the things that she would want us to know for our posterity. So, okay. Hi, Mom. Tell us the names of your parents and your grandparents.
my mother's father's name was William Tennant, Tennant. You don't hear that name very often in this country. He was originally from Ireland, came from South Carolina, and married my grandmother. Her maiden name was McGowan. My mother never let me forget in her life that I was always Scotch-Irish. I did not know my grandparents. They were all gone before I was born. My mother's name was Betty, was originally Elizabeth, and they called her Betty Tennant. My father's name was Levitt Stevens, Stevens. My mother was born at Munford, Tennessee, about 40 miles from Memphis, and I was born at Munford, Tennessee. My grandfather Tennant was a well-known businessman at that time, and my father worked for my mother's father, and I suppose that's how they met.
Yeah, just keep going. Yeah.
What kind of work did they do?
My father was a farmer and dealt with horses. He could drive 16 horses, which is very unusual. He was quite a handled horses.
Wow.
In my early childhood, I remember him using oxen as a team.
Mm-hmm. To plow the field?
And he was he liked to do that. He was real well known for his handling of horses. And about...
And your mother, you said you didn't know your grandparents, and you're telling us now about your mother and father.
Yeah.
And what about your mother? Tell us about her. What did she like to do, and what was she good at?
My mother was always kind of a shy, timid person, and just a homemaker. And you want to tell me about when I...
Go ahead.
Where
Anything you want to tell.
Where did you grow up? Did you say Tennessee? I'm sorry.
Yes, I until I was about 10 years old, on a farm. And you wanted me to tell something about my early childhood. My brother-in-law said the first thing, I was always a daddy girl, quite a tomboy. And I liked to ride. And I remember something comical when I was real small. I took a dip of snuff, and I thought, and it made me so sick, I couldn't still remember how sick I was. And I'm sure my mother and father knew what, but they laughed. Of course, I was in bed. But believe me, that was all the snuff I ever wanted.
And you were 10?
No, little bitty.
Little.
And as I said, I like to ride. And my daddy had us a small horse. And I always rode behind. My brother was about 2.5 years older than I. So we had to go several miles to Sunday school. We went to Episcopalian Sunday school because that was the nearest to our home then.
Mm-hmm.
And one time we had a big rain and the creek flooded that we had to cross. And the horse had to swim. And I was on, of course, holding to my brother. And I can still get cold chills thinking if we had fallen or that horse had tumbled, that would have been the end of us. But anyway, the horse swam across that creek and we got home okay. Then another time,
Do you know what age you were then?
I was probably 6 or 7.
So
And,
what year was that? Can you remember?
Huh?
What year that would have been?
No, I was born in 1907.
1907.
Mhm.
In 1914.
And another time, we were taking my daddy to a small town so he could catch the train to go to Memphis. And my brother was on the big horse that my daddy rode, and I was on the, we called him Tom Thumb horse, and my daddy had got us a child saddle. And a lot of times that saddle came unfastened, but anyway, the horses got to racing, and we couldn't stop them. We were frightened to death. So my horse was pushing my brother's horse, and his big horse jumped the bridge and just made it clear, jumped from one across the creek on a wooden bridge. And we tried to stop him, couldn't. We got to the gate where we lived, and the horses stopped so suddenly, I fell off, and my foot hung in the stirrup. But when my foot hung, the horse didn't drag me. My mother came, of course, running as soon as she saw it. But it didn't hurt me, it just frightened me when he stopped so suddenly, and I fell off. And that was an experience. And what else?
Tell us about your brothers and sisters.
I had 2 brothers and 1 sister. My oldest brother, one time my mother and daddy gone somewhere, and my brother was always really into something. So he hooked up some calves and put a kind of a buggy behind it, and of course I was in it, and they ran right straight to the pond and dumped me in the pond. But by the time my dad and mother got home, everything was cleared up and they didn't know about it.
Now, how many brothers and sisters were there?
I had 2 brothers and 1 sister.
And what were their names?
My oldest brother's name was Marvin. My sister's name was Ella Mae. My second brother's name was Mortimer, and we called him Marty.
So you used to ride horses? Was this before you had cars?
I loved to ride. Yeah, I was quite a tomboy.
And was Maudie the one that you were always riding with on the horse?
Behind, yeah, he was 2.5 years older than I was.
So were you closer to him than any of the others?
Well, yeah, oh yes, he always had me jumping off of, he'd go up to the highest tree and dare me to jump. And of course I'd jump. He was always daring me to do something. It's a wonder I'm not dead.
What
I
happened
hadn't
to
died.
Marty? What happened to Marty?
He's the one that got killed.
How?
He had red, dark red auburn hair, the prettiest auburn hair you ever saw. And
He had a girlfriend, I know, that he dated. We had lots of pictures of him and his girlfriend.
Yeah. They were engaged. He lived in Mississippi then. And
Well, why did he get in a fight and get killed?
he was shot in the back.
Well, who shot him?
It was kind of a plotted thing. You see, Sister's husband had always been a real big bootlegger,
Yeah.
and the sheriff had let him get by with it. So it was coming up election time, and everybody knew that, I think his name was Jim T. Scott, had been letting Albert off, you know, all those years. So he wanted to make a big name for himself so he'd be elected. So they made this up to get Marty drunk and like he was going to break in this place, and they shot him in the back. And
Marty was a bootlegger?
no, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband,
Oh, okay.
Well, who was the other brother besides?
Marvin. You remember him?
Well, Uncle Marvin and Maudie, and who was the other one?
That's all. I just had two brothers and one sister.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's kind of a small family for that era, wasn't it? People usually had bigger families than just 4 kids. But, so, okay.
I guess so.
So your sister's husband was in on a plot to kill your brother?
Yeah.
Wow. That's mean.
Yeah, but that was under the blanket. It was never proved, but we know that's what
Oh.
happened.
Albert Knight was
Yeah,
responsible for
yeah.
And
Uncle
because
Marvin.
the sheriff was in on it?
Oh, sure, he's the
Yeah.
one that had it done.
Right. So it never got investigated.
No,
Huh. And this, I'm sorry, this was, where did you grow up in? Did you say Tennessee or South Carolina?
I grew up in Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I didn't. I went to Arkansas when I was about 9 years
Okay.
old.
Now, didn't they shoot Maudie in Memphis?
No, it was Covington,
Covington. Okay.
about 40 miles from Memphis.
We're done solved mysteries.
That was the county seat. I think that's where you asked where my mother got married. My mother got their license in Covington, Tennessee. I think it was 1896.
Didn't you tell me one time that your father had a restaurant?
He did.
Was that
After he left Tennessee, he had a big there was a lot of Arkansas at that time was timber, mostly timber, and he was in the lumber business, and he had a bunch of horses and teams, you know, to do. So somehow or another, the man they had to deal with, he had to sue him. So my daddy got quite a bit of money out of it. Somehow or another, was the guy who was trying to rake my daddy off. But anyway, he got a good lawyer, and the lawyer got him quite a bit of money. And then my daddy went in the restaurant business at Parkin, Arkansas. That's about 40 some odd miles from Memphis in Arkansas.
did he do the cooking, or
Mhm.
he was a good cook?
Mhm.
Really? And didn't you tell me that they had to move around a lot because of the restaurant, or was it always in one place, or?
No, we first went to Parkin, Arkansas. That's down in the bottom of it. So my mother got real sick with malaria. So we heard about this place called Heber Springs up in the mountains. So we went there. I think I must have been about 12. That's where I remember most of my schooling. And in Heber, I must have been about 12 when I went to Heber Springs.
And he opened a restaurant there
Yeah.
too?
Yeah.
And that's where you met Daddy?
Your daddy came in kind of late, and a girl and her mother had come in that day to stay at Heber Springs, and she wanted to go. Heber didn't have a show then, only in the summertime. They had what they call, what do you call those, where they have a outdoor show? Well, anyway, they had a movie that night, so her name was Lillian. So I called my daddy and see if I could go to the show, and he said, yeah. Oh, before that, Roy had come in and wanted a piece of pie.
What's happening?
Okay, well, we're back
Okay.
after a short intermission while the battery got charged. So where were we? We were at,
We were talking about how Daddy came into the restaurant and ordered a piece of pie.
So this little girl, I think I told you, and her mother had come. So I called my daddy and asked if I could go to the show with Lady, and he said, yeah. And the minute we stepped up there, Roy was standing talking to his friend that was working there at the theater, and he said, here they are now. So he walked up and bought our tickets and sat with us, and they took me home first that night, and then Roy took her home. Then we started seeing each other. I would go home with my girlfriend from church on Sundays, and then Roy would come over. And that's how we started our courtship.
How old were you?
you?
About 16.
And how old was Daddy?
About 16.
Both of you.
We were almost the same age. His birthday was in January and mine was in September. So after we'd gone together a little while, he told some of his friends that he never did intend to quit me. He was going to go with me forever. So I thought that sounded kind of funny. But anyway, that's the way we started our courtship. And what else?
Tell me what you know about Daddy and his family and
Well, Roy's mother was born in Indiana, and I think her name was Durham. I'm almost positive his daddy must have been born in Arkansas, because I think his grandfather was a doctor there in Arkansas. And they,
Her maiden name was Durham.
Durham.
What was her father's name? Do you know? What was her name?
Nina.
Nana Griffin. Durham Griffin.
And
do you know where they were married or anything? And where was Daddy born?
Newport, Arkansas. That's not too far out of Memphis in Arkansas.
And what was he doing in Heber Springs? His family moved there?
His daddy and mother moved there, and they had a home there, and Dad Griffin was a carpenter, and he worked out of town most of the time. Carrie was the oldest, Roy was the next, Thelma, Luther, and Katie. That was the 5 children.
What happened to Carrie?
Carrie died, I think he must have had heart trouble. He died, I think when you were a baby.
Of natural causes.
I think it must have been a heart.
And was Daddy in school when you all met?
No.
Well, he must.
He was only 16. Had
No, he wasn't. He wasn't in school when we met.
What was he doing? Was he working?
He was working on a farm.
And you were in school?
Yeah.
And how far in school did you go?
11th grade,
And how far did he go?
6th grade.
6th grade.
I thought it was 8th grade. 6.
6th grade.
I remember Billy Joe telling a professor when he was in college that something his daddy was doing, it must have been in his arithmetic or something, and the college professor told Billy Joe there was no way that his daddy was doing that with his education. And Billy Joe said, well, he is. Your daddy was a very, very intelligent man.
I remember Billy Joe talking about Daddy could figure math faster than he could on a slide rule.
That's right.
And so did Daddy's father teach him about carpentry?
I think it was kind of natural with Roy, because he didn't work with his daddy till after we were married. I think it just kind of came natural with him.
Well, his brother Luther was a carpenter too, wasn't he?
Well, yeah. That's good.
Okay. And so how old were you when you married?
18, both of us.
And
And-
what year?
I thought you were 17.
I thought so too till I looked on my
Birth certificate.
birth, that
Marriage
that,
certificate?
that census that they did. I thought I was just 17 till I looked at that census.
Okay. And you were both 18 when you married, and then what happened? Where'd
What-
you go, and what did you do then?
What year were you married?
Huh.
What day did you get married? What year?
We got married in 1925, December the 26th, 1925.
Huh.
The day after Christmas.
Mhm.
And what did you do then after you were married?
We went to Little Rock, and Roy worked on. They were doing the They were building a big bakery there, and Roy hadn't worked but a few. They had different areas they called the carpenters, and he hadn't worked but a few days till they put him down with as one of the main carpenters, and he drew as much money as his daddy did. In those days, $7.90 a day was a lot of money.
Doing carpentry work?
90 cents an hour.
Oh, yeah, that was.
And so how long were you there, and where did you go from there?
Well, we were there just a few months. Then the rest of the year, we went back to Heber Springs, and he worked for a railroad company. Then that December of 26, his daddy had gone to Shawnee. They had the big oil boom on there. So Roy went to Shawnee, and I went to Mississippi and stayed with my brother and Idell till Roy made enough money to send me to come to Shawnee. And I went to Shawnee in January, I think it was about January the 18th, 1927. And he did carpenter work the rest. He was always busy with doing carpenter work till he went in business for himself after World War II.
Daddy tells me that you all lived in a tent in Central Park. Is that true?
When I first went to Shawnee, lived in a tent.
How long did you live in that tent?
Oh, about 4 or 5 weeks, something like that.
In the winter?
I think so.
He-
But it wasn't. Oh, it must have been, I came to Shawnee in January. And we lived in the apartment. Dad, Griffin, and Ruth had an apartment. We lived with them for a while till we moved out in the tent in Boy Scout Park, Shawnee.
And then where did you live?
Let's see, let me check.
Then you got a little house, or?
We went to Wewoka. There was a job there. We went to Wewoka and lived there. And we went back to Shawnee And we bought that place out on Grant Street when Billy Joe was about 6 weeks old.
So Billy Joe was born in Shawnee?
We
We
woke
woke
up.
up. And didn't you leave Shawnee and go up east for a while? There was one time Daddy went to work.
During the war, worked
Oh.
in Indiana.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we went, when Steve was about, I was pregnant with you. Steve was how much older than you? 3 years. Before World War II, we went to Terre Haute, Indiana. Roy was working. He helped them build the atomic bomb. I sometimes wonder if that's not where Roy got in trouble with his throat. They were supposed to wear masks while they were working.
That was Hansford, Washington.
No, that's Terre Haute, Indiana.
Terre Haute.
And then he went to Washington.
Then after we came back, after Sharon Kay was born, Marv and I were on the way to that big government job in Pasco, Washington, and Roy went out there and worked a few weeks and couldn't find a place for the family, so he came back home. And he worked back, did work for, he worked for Cowan Construction Company when we first went there, and I guess one of his last jobs he worked.
So did you keep the house in Shawnee and you just went on these short-term trips for a certain job and then come back?
Yeah.
Well, they moved from East Grant Street up to North Harrison, though. That was before the war.
What did he do in Terre Haute, helping with the bomb? Did he just help building work? Or
He worked for that big,
did he help build buildings out there? Or?
no, he was working for this big company that, I can't think of the name of it. I don't think it was DuPont, but it was some big company that they were, carpenter work was in with it. He went there as a carpenter.
Uh-huh.
Before you married Daddy, did you have any goals, any dreams of doing anything? Did you always just dream of being wife and mother, or
Well, I thought I'd like to be a school teacher, but I didn't make that. But
you were so young when you married?
no, I didn't think about it.
Well, where were you and Dad? I mean, what was the wedding like the day you were married? Tell me about that.
Well, we just we decided to get married, and we went, and the old preacher where I went to church all the time got up out of bed, and he said, "Clara, does your folks know about this?" And I said, "Yeah." So he married us, and then we went to over to Roy's mother's, and I guess I never did like her. She said, "All you do is raise them for somebody else." That Roy's mother was very plain-spoken, very
Untactful.
Okay.
So were they not fond of the marriage? His parents?
We'd gone together a long time. She wasn't surprised. That was just her way of,
Oh, okay.
I guess we didn't tell anybody, and maybe she was a little hurt, but she kind of snarled her nose and said, "All you do is raise it from somebody else."
So tell me some of the best things that you remember about our family and the things we did. What are some of the happiest times that we had as a family?
Well, I think it was always a happy time. I don't think until Steve got sick, of course, but Christmas always a good time with our family. I thought we always had good Christmases, and of course, other holidays were always nice. We always tried to celebrate, and I guess you might say in that day, people were so poor, or we were poor, we didn't think of anything other than looking ahead to be taking care of yourself and having something for the future. It was just a daily thing to look forward to taking care of your family.
And what were some of the hardest times?
Well, we lost a baby before Steve was born. That was a terrible time for us. And then after Steve got sick, that was a terrible time.
How did the baby die? Was it just not strong enough? Just complications?
Burned.
That was Betty, and she was how old?
13 months.
And she pulled the grease off on her.
Oh. Huh.
That was after Steve was born.
Before Steve was born.
Okay. I thought that was between Steve and me.